I mentioned earlier that there's a way to reset the screen back to kind of the secondary font set. But I also forgot to walk you through the fact that the Vicky, or the secondary master control register for Vicky, which controls video modes, allows a double X and double Y font set to be switched into. Now, this is something you may have seen in some sampler demo programs that folks have posted. Typically, they tend to be machine language programs or assembly language programs that are, special purpose. You run into a bit of a snag in SuperBASIC, but it's not to stop you from creating an application that switches to this mode and directs a user, displays information on the screen, runs a program, simple or complex, and then switches back to kind of a normal 80 by 50 or 80 by 60 screen. There's two registers for the character width and height. They're here at bit 1 and bit 2. There's a register value of 6, which is a combination of bit 1 and bit 2, which will do both, double X, double Y. And then putting a 0 in secondary register, otherwise known as D1001, will reset it back to 80 by 60. So let me just run through that real quick. I'm going to press enter on this line. Now, interestingly, and this is important, when I do this, BASIC will kind of lose its way. The BASIC editor is only accustomed to an 80 by 60 character screen, not even 80 by 50. So everything that it does and knows about and expects is based on that screen geometry. And here we are doing something kind of under the covers, behind the scenes, to make changes to the way that characters are portrayed. It still thinks it has an 80 character screen, and we're going to be switching to a 40 character screen, and it'll be a bit confused, and in turn it'll confuse us. But that's not to say you can't manage it yourself. Switch to this video mode, print stuff from the leftmost column onward, and have an application that's full featured. But there are some caveats in there. I do believe eventually SuperBASIC will support any of the, 5 or 6 combinations of video modes by sensing or reading the registers and then acting accordingly, adjusting the screen editor dimensions and the code that invokes wrapping and cursor motion to obey the Vicky controller. But to demonstrate simply, I'm going to go from double X back to regular X with double Y, over to double X and double Y, and then finally I'll reset back to 80 by 60, which is what we're looking at here, by poking a 0 into that location. So I'll press enter and you'll see double X only, okay? Now notice I have blank lines in between each line. That's the second half of each of the 80 character lines. Not very different from the way that Commodore had a second line in any of the basic editors. You can continue your basic text program line from the line number 40 characters to the right and then wrap to the second line. Now you notice I'm at line 12, and you'll also notice that all of my instructions are down here. Well, the fact is the cursor is actually right here, twice the distance. It's actually right here on this line. I'll press enter. Now we'll go from double X only to double Y. There you go. Now you can see this double Y on the screen, so the letters are twice as high, but not twice as wide anymore. And this is much more readable. Interestingly, there's 80 characters across, which is nice, but there's only 30 characters top to bottom. Notice the 20 here, and there's about 10 more, okay? Notice that because it's 80 characters, all of the wrapping is proper. My cursor is where it should be at the line right after I pressed enter on double Y. Now I'm gonna go from double X and double Y, and you'll notice a very chunky character, but you'll notice that phenomenon again where I have spaces between each line. And those are much larger characters. In fact, it looks pretty close to the dim1 version of the text command from the graphics portion of the SuperBASIC kind of toolkit, which is a command that puts graphic screen or renders text on the graphic screen. But this is actually, I think, a tiny bit smaller. So now I'll press enter one last time to take me back to value 0, which will be the 80 by 60 screen. And here we are back again. Okay, so now that I've run through that, I'm gonna head down to one other setting, which is the clock 70 setting. And this changes Vicky to a 70 hertz or 70 times per second screen refresh and an 80 by 50 height to the screen. So the width will still be the same, but the height will be 50 versus 60. And you'll see right here as these numbers no longer reach down to 60. I'll get there and then I'll explain the next bit. Okay. Now you'll notice that it looks a little bit more readable perhaps. The letters are a little bit higher. You'll notice that the wrapping occurs as it should. You'll notice that I'm down to 50 as I promised. That's cool. But if I try and go down, again, it's not going to scroll up until I get quite a bit down below. So I'm going to head down here, and I'm going to head down more, and I'm going to head down. The cursor's now on line 52 or 53. And that's kind of unfortunate because I can't see what I'm doing. SuperBASIC isn't wise enough to know that I changed the video mode and to scroll accordingly. And in fact, if I press enter to try and get to the point where I get the scrolling upwards, I'm going to invoke a pile of syntax errors down below, which you'll see when I head back. So I'm going to do that just for fun. I'll hit enter, enter, enter. Let's see if we can get it to scroll. There we go. Now it's scrolling, and you're going to see in a minute that you're going to see a whole pile of no, you're not seeing the next episode. It believes these are line numbers, so I'm okay there. That's fine. So I'll scroll up 10. Now you're in view, and I'm going to go up to the top again. I'm going to get rid of this mode by switching back to regular 80 by 60 mode by pressing enter on this line here. So just in review, we've just been spending some time in the clock 70 mode, which is bit 0, otherwise known as value 1 in the D1001 register. Okay. Now I scrolled off the screen a bit so you can see that the 1 through 15 are up here now. So that's the second to last thing I wanted to show you. It's pretty interesting. The last thing I want to show you is that there are two font sets. We spend most of the video talking about how to change, reorganize, or redefine some of the characters. I promised you that if things go awry on us, if things go awry, there's a way to get back to a readable character set. When Vicky boots, when the platform boots, the character is copied out of what is essentially flash memory into RAM in the C1000 page, as we talked about, the C1000 bank, as we talked about previously. That comes out of the FPGA. And then it's just open RAM, and it's yours to mess with if you like. But there's a secondary character set that you can switch into. It's slightly different. It looks a little bit wonky, and you'll see that in just a moment. I'm going to put a poke 32 into D1001. I have below it just a line to reset back to 0 again, but let's see what that does. There you go. So notice the font changed a bit. Okay, I'm going to press enter here to get back again, and you'll see it's a little bit squashed. The cursor goes from a checkered pattern to an X for whatever reason, but no, it has slashes through the 0. There's probably some other changes. The X is decidedly smaller. The O is up a bit. The S doesn't have a top line. It's kind of squished down. I mean, this could be thought of as and I'm going to go back a bit to 1984 when Apple released the first Macintosh. There's something called the San Francisco font, which had every character slightly different, almost ransom note style. So let me do a quick for loop. Yeah, I'm going to do a quick for loop to show what the full character set looks like, just to see if we can, now I'll poke it back, we can see the quick change to see how it looks in comparison. So 4x equals 0, 2, 255. You can see that T and the O is relative, it's kind of nutty looking. I'm gonna C print CHR dollar of X, semicolon, colon, next. That'll do it. All right. So, oddly, a lot of these characters and these line draw characters look an awful lot like the Commodore character set. And this has nothing to do with anything that I did earlier, because this machine's been off for several hours between. I think there's some characters here that didn't exist previously. In fact, I know there are. Look at the smiley face here. And I believe that comes from an IBM style character set. LFF, line feed, form feed. I don't know what that is. So there's interesting characters here along the way, including, the card suits are fairly spaced out as they were in the Commodore set. The arrows are different. So let me switch back so we can have a quick look and see what the original one looked like. There you go. I'll switch back again just so you can see the difference. Okay. And then my last trick, I'm going to show you what this looks like in double X, double Y mode on a composite monitor, because that's really ideal. And I have it hooked up here with a very inexpensive a DVI to composite RCA converter box. I'm going to press enter here. I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to clear the screen. At some point I'll be on a clear line where I can clear the screen. Maybe not. I'll hit Control F, Control K, which will clear the end of line. I'll clear the screen for real this time. I'll get a directory. All right. And again, you're seeing, you know, SuperBASIC react or not able to react that I have a twice wide and twice high character set. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this quickly. I'll turn the camera to show you a Commodore monitor I have here to my left with the inexpensive Amazon adapter plugged in. And we'll talk about how readable it is on an old school CRT monitor. But I'm going to get down to the bottom of this to a clear line. I'm going to load up, be there soon, there we go. I'm going to load up a program called Spreader Junior.basic from the disk, and I can see that the SD card's lit, so it's loading. And I just want to give you a kind of example of how this is very useful on an old school monitor, the SuperBASIC notwithstanding. So once this is done, I'll type run, and what you're going to look at, what you're going to see is a couple of mixed modes on top of each other. Of course, we have the layers, as we've expressed previously. There's a bitmap grid, there's some text, there are a number of sprites. This is the Foenix sprite editor that I'm going to load up and demonstrate. All right, it's finished. And it's clearing the screen, and here we go. So most of what you're looking at here, and I've shown this before. Welcome to the F256 Junior Sprite Editor version 1.2. I'm going to navigate to load a file. It's that one. I'm going to type in author, as I've demonstrated previously. Now, interestingly, look at this. The top line says type file name to load, and in parentheses, .spr will be added, colon. So that's meant to be on a single line, but it wraps and it's actually usable or useful here. I'll press enter, it's loading it, and here we are. So now it's loaded up. So again, perfectly normal, perfectly usable application. Now, the graphic screen and the sprites and the tiles all live in a world that are 320 horizontal resolution by 200 vertical resolution, or 320 by 240, which is precisely what old school Commodore and other machines, Ataris, etc., and Apple for that matter, lived at a 192 vertical resolution. But this is the world they lived in, and these machines were engineered for televisions. So here we are on a Commodore 1084S monitor with no RF modulator. It's just simply a inexpensive converter box that I bought off of Amazon for $15, and I can, you know, get the experience of using it on a CRT. You know, some people have a real liking to this. So I just wanted to kind of show this, that, you know, Foenix, the Foenix platform and the way that it's kind of, you know, architected is extremely flexible. And you can use it with kind of newer monitors for extreme crispness if you like, or you can use it on your old Commodore monitors or any other type of monitor. So that's about it for now. I wanted to demonstrate the various character modes, which we really hadn't talked about previously. And of course, the big caveat is SuperBASIC's not yet aware of any character size, except for something that will display on an 80 character wide by 40 character screen. Sorry, 80 character wide by 60 character screen. But that's due to change. So we've been talking about this for a while. All of the layers and the products are evolving, and you know, soon we'll be able to do some things which we really hadn't thought of at the beginning of this journey. So stay tuned.